Hi, my name is Mick Pletcher, and I'm here today to talk about building a shipping container home. For some of y'all that don't know who I am, I'm actually run the Nashville PowerShell user group, and just spoke over here teaching PowerShell. I got off on this kick that I wanted my own home over in Land Between the Lakes, Tennessee, so I told my wife, I said, we're going to build our own house. So some of the topics we're going to talk about today is why would you ever want to use a shipping container for a house? About the design of it, local laws and codes, your insurance, required skills, what you got to know to build your own house, especially a shipping container, the tools. We're taking a long break after you get started. And then where you can buy shipping containers, outside help, and then finally actually getting down to building your house. So the first thing, why would you ever want to use a shipping container? Well, cost is number one. You buy a shipping container, and I paid $3,250 per container. They're cheap compared to, you got an instant 4 walls, roof, and a floor. So for $3,250 for a steel container, that's not too bad. Your durability, you've got Core-10 steel structure there, which basically it will rust at some point, but it's designed to rust. The Core-10 steel is, and not actually be compromised. Your design. Well, how big of a home do you want? Well, this is a weekend home my wife and I are building. And it's over at Land Between the Lakes, which is 80 miles west of Nashville. So we don't want a big home, but we want something that's energy efficient and a place that we can get away to on the weekends to go over and hunt, fish, kayak, 4-wheel. We love doing all that outdoor stuff. Is your home going to be connected to local utilities? Ours is not. Ours is completely eco-friendly, green home. So we don't have to worry about any of that. Is the home going to be underground? Half of our home is underground already. Put 2 sides of it completely under, reinforced it, and that gives it a lot of cooling effect off the ground. You want your home to be eco-friendly. We did. We've put ours, as I said earlier, completely off the grid, so it's not consuming any natural resources from the energy, water, any of that. It's all using the environment, what it provides. And is this going to be a full-time or vacation home? These are some of the big questions you need to ask yourself before you ever start building your own house, especially a container house. This is just a vacation home that we're building, and we want to go over there on weekends and get away and have fun and maybe spend a week over there sometimes, depending on the season. Now, this is a big one right here. Before you ever start building, you need to know the local laws and codes. When I first started out with this project, I wanted to know, is this thing even legal? And that's a huge point, because if you planned on doing it here, it's not legal in the least. You can't build it in Davidson County or any of the surrounding counties. They wouldn't allow this. And you're going to waste your money if you buy your property and then realize you can't build your own house the way you want. Utility hookup, that's part of the legality. In many of these cities, you have to have utility hookup. And this comes from the International Building Standards Code. The International Building Standards Code says that you have to be connected to the water system and you have to be connected to electricity in order for it to be a viable home and to be sanitary. Well, that's outdated. Those codes were last updated in 2006. Technology in the last 10 years has increased exponentially. You don't need connection, but these cities still go by it. There's 2 cases right now. There's one in Huntsville, Alabama, and there's one in, if I'm not mistaken, it's Boca Raton, Florida. Both the people, they're not shipping container homes, but they cut the utilities off completely, went composting toilets, have their own solar panels, and their homes have been condemned. And the utilities and the local cities are going after them to make them get out of their own house, because they're no longer connected. So these are some big things that you need to find out before you ever do it. Now, where I'm building over at LBL, there are no building codes at all for me. And the reason is, which is one of the reasons I'm building over there, I'm a hunter, is the fact that a lot of hunters have built their own cabins over in that area. And so all they want is shelter. They want to go out and hunt for the day, come back in the evening, and just have a roof over their head. That's why they don't have building codes in that area. The only two codes I have over there is electricity and water, and those codes only apply if I actually connected to the grid, which I'm not. We're not forced to connect to it. And that's, like I said, because of those hunting cabins over there. So that's the big thing. HO homeowners associations, property owner associations, are there those? If there's either one of those, the likelihood that you're going to be able to build is almost nil. Now, where I'm building, we're building on a cul-de-sac that's right on Lake Barkley. It comes right around the road does, and we do have a POA. But POA, because this is not a trailer, the POA has the fact that you can't build a trailer in our neighborhood. But because these are shipping containers, they don't fall under a trailer definition. And because I'm going to build an outside brick wall over the shipping container, they can't say anything, even though they tried to at first. So these are some really big questions. And then your property taxes. You know, I went online, and there's lots of people that have blogged that have built houses just like I'm building. And I went online and I asked them, I said, so how is your house classified for property taxes? You know, not a single person would respond to me. They all told me, I won't talk about that. I couldn't get any answer out of anyone. So I basically went, and luckily enough, I work for a law firm that has real estate attorneys there. And I got some help from them, and I went to the local property assessment people there in Stewart County, Tennessee, and I asked them, I said, so what is this house going to be legal? Are there going to be legal problems with me building this? How's the taxation going to come along? Well, they had no answer for me. And so they ended up classifying the house as a storage facility. They had no other classification. They couldn't classify it as a trailer because it's not a single wide or a double wide. So these are some real issues here that apparently I'm one of the first ones that has actually come out in public and talked about. Because I'm just purely guessing that other people wouldn't say anything because they pretty much skirted the law. Went ahead and built it, and hopefully nobody will ever say anything. So these are, and then your other thing is insurance. What are you going to do about insurance for your house? We've had no problems with that. I've got building insurance right now. We went through Farm Bureau and they had no problems. They've got other people that have built shipping container homes and have been completely off the grid. So they were great. They accepted it right off. One other thing that you're going to have with this is, once you're done, how are you going to get somebody out there to inspect it? So they'll put a value on it for you. So you need to think about that too. I know where I'm building it, likely there's not going to be anybody out there that has experience in doing an inspection on this house. You know, that it's not on the grid, it's got its own energy source, got its own water source. So you gotta find people that'll come in and be able to assess those type features.
There's no building codes as well, but what did you say?
Right, there are no building codes out there. There are building codes if you connect to the grid, but connecting to the grid out there is not required. So I don't fall under anything because I'm going to be, the house is completely self-sustaining. So,
when will you have it built?
well, the house is almost built. We're actually framing out right now. We finished framing actually the whole inside, and we're getting ready to actually connect the water this weekend. And all the rooms are built out. We're getting ready to start putting the wood floors, wood walls in. So we're really getting close. And I've got a whole bunch of pictures on here to show it here soon. So as I was saying on the insurance, those are some of the things that you need to look at if you ever consider one of these. One other thing is, people come up to me and they think I'm a doomsday prepper, and I'm not. That's one of the biggest things I get is, oh, you must be a doomsday prepper. Well, I mean, the reason I'm building the house the way it is because, number one, I want it eco-friendly. I don't want to be dependent on the utilities. And if my wife and I decide we want to do something else for a month or two and we aren't going to go back, I don't want any bills coming out of the house. I want it completely zero bills, zero charges to us while we're gone from there. And those are the real reasons why, to be green and cost effective, to have a second home that just easy to keep. Because as like we've said about our own house, it's a pain in the butt. After a while, trying to, you gotta constantly upgrade stuff, maintain and all. Well, we wanted low maintenance on this other house. So these are a lot of the reasons why we went with shipping containers. So some of your required skills, there's definitely skills you gotta have. You gotta be a welder. That, I can tell you right now, with all the hours, I've put in almost 140 hours of welding and plasma cutting. And we're talking probably $15,000 to $20,000 right there of work that I did myself. So unless you want to spend that out on it, you definitely should be a welder. Welding is not hard to learn. I learned in 2009. I taught myself how to weld, taught myself how to plasma cut. It's an easy one that a lot of people put a lot more fear into than they should. I mean, it's not a hard skill. You just got to have patience. Plasma cutting torch, you definitely need to know how to use that. If you know how to weld, you can plasma cut. It's basically a welder with a air compressor that blows as it melts the steel, it blows the steel away. Ingenuity, you definitely need that. You got to be able to think outside the box. Because I can tell you right now, from my experience of building this house, I had everything planned out at the start. I knew exactly how I wanted it done. And then when I started building it, lots of stuff changed. I mean, changes even up to now. And basic building. You need to know basically how to do basic building tasks. How to put walls up. I mean, we made some big mistakes at first doing that. And I'll tell you right now, YouTube is going to be your friend. YouTube and Google. I've used those two lots, learning how to frame walls, how to put insulation in, how to do spray foam, all that stuff. So you definitely need those skills, are your critical skills right there. Your required tools, you definitely need a plasma cutter or a torch. You can use an angle grinder instead of those, but I started out, I watched some YouTube videos, how others had framed out shipping containers. I started out using angle grinders, and they take forever. And you go through one wheel right after another. I went through 18 wheels, for instance, just doing one wall on that. So it wasn't long, I bought a plasma cutter and learned how to use that, and then I just zip right through cutting those walls out. So you definitely want to have a plasma cutter or a cutting torch. Welder, you want a MIG welder. You don't need a big one. I have a Hobart 140, which plugs right into your normal 110 outlet, and it works great over there. It can weld up to 1/4-inch steel, so you don't have any problems with any of your welding. I mean, it takes longer, and you don't need gas with it. You can use flux core, which means it basically has a core inside the welding steel cable that creates the gas cloud around it for it to properly weld. So just need a basic MIG welder. Hoist, you're definitely going to need a hoist. You got lots of steel you're going to be bringing in because you're going to have to reinforce the shipping container. Truck, SUV with a trailer, you definitely need that a lot too. My Jeep Wrangler out there, I've used that thing for everything, and I mean, I've even overused what that Jeep should have been used for, hauling steel. You're going to need an air compressor. You definitely need a compressor out there. You're going to need that for your plasma cutter, because that's how plasma cutters work. Take compressed air and blow through, and as I said, as it cuts, it blows the steel away. And plus, you probably need it for painting too, because your painting process will go a lot faster. You'll definitely need an angle grinder. There's going to be stuff that you're going to have to sand down. Use wire brush. You'll need that, and a drill. Those are your main things you're going to need, the tools for doing this, besides your basic tools like screwdrivers, pliers, all those things. You'll need that.
Do you have a generator when you're doing this?
Yes. Yes. I have a 6,000 watt generator over there. After you get this stuff, take a long break. take a really long break. When I started this project in 2013, I left the last company I worked at and came to the current law firm I'm at now. And I was so busy the first year, I had no time at all to go over, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had this, as I said earlier, I had this house completely thought out. We were going to build a concrete block wall, and we were foundation, drop the container, get a crane in there, drop the containers down on it, and voila, we were going to have a house. I'm so glad I didn't do it that way. It really helped me because that year that I couldn't go over there every weekend and work, it gave me time to really think this through, how it should actually be built, and to come up with new thoughts. So take a long, literally, once you've got your property, once you've got some of your stuff, take a long break and really think this out before you get started. Because it would have looked completely different and it wouldn't have nearly the features today that I put into it that I originally thought. So that's an important thing to do. Buying your shipping containers. I get that a lot. People say, well, where did you ever find these being here in Nashville? Well, I'm lucky on this one. Where I'm building over there at Land Between the Lakes, there's a guy down the road that goes to Memphis and buys them and sells them 10 miles down the road from over there. So I was really, really lucky on that. But if you're in Nashville, they sell them right over on Briley Parkway at across from the Nashville Gun Club there in West Nashville. It's really, you can see them right there. It's right beside the prison, and they're visible right from Briley Parkway. So they're not hard to come by. You can also go on eBay. They're sold on Craigslist. You can literally go on there and buy them here in Nashville. And Facebook groups. You can go on there and ask for them. The Clarksville Facebook groups up there, they have shipping containers for sale that different trucking companies sell. So it's not hard to find them. And outside help. That's one of your big things that you need to also get. That's another thing I'm very lucky about. Where I'm building over there, there's one guy down the road from me that owns his own construction company, and he's been down helping me when I've needed backhoeing and clearing the land and all that stuff. He just drove right down the road. He's a half mile from me with all that stuff. But you're going to need people there. You need to definitely know who you're going to call, like to excavate your land, clear it all out. I started clearing it out at first in 2013. And it took me an entire weekend just to do a small part of it. He came down with the backhoe, and he did it within an hour. Cleared the entire lot. So you definitely get some construction people in there. And usually, I'll tell you right now, it's $500 to rent a backhoe for a day. This guy charged me $100 to drive down the road and do it, $100 an hour. And he's been a huge help with this stuff for me. So you definitely need to know who you're going to get to help with that. Engineers. You should definitely get an engineer to help. The last firm I worked at, that was an architecture and engineering firm, so I got a lot of knowledge from them, and luckily I'm in the same building still, because they're only 7 floors down from my current office, so I see them in the lobby and I get to ask questions even today. But seriously, you definitely need an engineer if you're going to build something like this, because when you start taking your walls out, you will structurally compromise the shipping containers. And you need to know where to put your supports and such. If you're worried about cost, I'll tell you right now, you can go on Upwork.com and get an engineer on there, and you can get an engineer for probably $100 that would be able to do the design work for you. Otherwise, you're probably talking $500 to $1,000 for an engineer locally. Builder, probably going to need a builder on some of the things that you're going to do. Like, for instance, when we started out, we needed the lot excavated. I had to get a guy in there with his backhoe. Not the guy down the street, I didn't know about him at the time. But I got another one to come in and help me, and he helped with some of that. A plumber. Actually, what you need is you need a plumber, builder, and electrician. You need them to come in. I've done all the work myself, but I don't trust myself either. I'm not under codes, but I want somebody else to come in and say, hey, your work is okay. Especially on stuff when it comes to like plumbing and gas and electricity. So you definitely want to make sure you get some of those people on hand. An attorney, probably need an attorney there. because if you're building a shipping container, you might want to have them check the laws for you. Or if they're going to hassle you before you start building, you may need to get an attorney to represent you for that. A surveyor, oh yeah. Surveying is easy. I learned that in my last job, how to survey, and I surveyed my lot. I ended up being 8 inches off. It's not hard if you can get the deed. You get your deed and you read the specs in there. It's really easy because you'll find the markers, the way they describe in there, how to do it. But definitely get a surveyor because somebody in the same neighborhood where I'm building didn't, and he built off on somebody else's property part of it, and now they're in court. So you definitely want to get your property surveyed. So getting started. First thing, like I said there, start with a surveyor, get your lot surveyed, make sure you got all your boundaries marked, clear your land, and designate where your house is going to be. Mark it off. Get your little markers, like from Tractor Supply. Start marking all that. So, excavation and the foundation. That's the first thing we did after we cleared everything on the lot. And there was the first thing we did. So, I'm building on a hill. That was part of what I said originally. We were going to build it up on blocks, concrete cinder blocks, and then we were going to have the crane lower the container down the block. Instead, we dug it out. And we made that a smooth place right there, and we put the containers down in that. So I started doing, this is one of the things that I backed out on. So I started putting in the foundation there, putting all the wood in to have the concrete foundation laid. And then I realized I was in over my head on the concrete part. So I got a guy to come in and do that part for me. You just got to know stuff that if you have a hunch that you can't do it, don't do it. Because I knew this was a critical thing right here, and I didn't want to mess something up with the foundation where the house is going to be compromised. So I got a guy to come in, and he did it to my specs. As you can see right here, since they're shipping containers, what I had him do is inlay steel beams down inside the foundation of it, and then when the shipping containers were brought in, I welded the containers straight to those steel beams so that they're welded to the foundation. So that was one of the best things I did, getting a guy to come in and actually help do the foundation instead. So the placement of the container. So there's when the container arrived. That's the guy bringing it in. And he just brought it in with a pickup truck. He had a big dually wheel pickup truck, and each container, these are 40-foot long by, they're called high cubes because they're 10 feet high. So they're almost 10,000 pounds each. And he brought it in there, and we let it slide down the hill there. And then I got the guy down the street, the construction guy I said that lived down the road a half mile down. We hooked a chain to his backhoe, and honestly, I never knew backhoes were as powerful as they are until I did this. And that backhoe, as you can see, he's pulling it right in place. And I was hoping this would work here. Let me see if it asked to enable. Well, I guess my YouTube video isn't working, but I've got a YouTube video out there of it actually being pulled into place.
Are you still on Wi-Fi?
Oh, I think that's what it is. Nope, thanks. Okay, there we go.
Screechy noise.
Yep. It pretty much was. Ah, thanks. Sorry about that. So as you can see right here, and it's pulling 10,000 pounds like it's nothing. And that's all it's to putting it in place. So there it was once we pulled it all fully in place. That was the first one. And there we go, we got the second one in there, and that's after the second one got pulled into place. Now we realized afterwards that after he left there, that they weren't completely pulled into place together. Because my next task was welding these together. So, before he left though, he did go ahead, and that's actually him, and he's creating my driveway. So he went ahead while he was there, after he pulled my containers in place, he went ahead and took the backhoe and ditched out or cut out all the driveway portion for me, and didn't charge me anything more for it. So if you can get somebody down there with a backhoe, get as much work as possible done each time. Make sure you know everything that needs to be done, because it's not cheap. So there's what happened. After he had already left, I had to hook it to my Jeep, and I had to pull the container into place myself, that steel cable. So, yeah.
Didn't break?
Nope. Well, I welded and then built my own rack with 3/8" steel on that Jeep. So, yeah, it pulled it. I used to come along and pulled it right into place there. So the next thing is now that they're actually together, is connecting the containers. So as you can see the little line down between them there.
Now we have to cut the walls?
Yes, this is out, and actually I've got a thing in the few slides up. I'm going to show you as I'm taking the walls out. So yeah, I mean, I'd already cut the walls out in here, but you can see where they're connected, or I need to connect them together inside. And that's what the next thing I did. I welded the plate down there in the center together, so that the inside of them were connected. And so on the top of the containers, as you can see, there's styrofoam rods. And you basically, when you run into a big section, because the containers, when you bring them together, they're still about this wide apart. So what you have to do is you have to take these styrofoam rods and wind them together, and you bring it down, and then you use what's called self-leveling caulk. And you just put it all the way down, that self-leveling caulk, and then that seals the two containers together. And then after I did that, I welded the steel, 1/4" flat steel, all the way down the seam of that. So now they're completely welded together. So after that, back to where I had it before, where you saw them split apart, I did just a little sliver in between them I cut out, because when you start cutting these walls out, they're structurally compromised. So that's why I cut just a little sliver out, put a steel beam, vertical beam in there, so it would support the container as I started cutting the walls out at that point. Because otherwise, what these will do is, they'll do this. They'll start to bow down, the container will, as it loses its structural integrity when those walls are cut. So there you can see a picture as I'm actually cutting it out there, and those things do get pretty darn heavy. And you've got two sides, of course, you got to cut. So it's a lot of cutting. And
How many times you cut yourself or something like against it?
lots. I've got several scars from it too.
Set your pants on fire a couple times?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've had metal fly back on me as I was cutting it. Yep. So there it is after the walls were cut out, and as you can see, I put two 4x4s in there in the back of it. The back of it right here, that's the vertical support beams I welded in place, so the back was fine. But it needed these two 4x4s to hold the front up, as I was getting ready to put the structural reinforcement in the front. You don't have to worry about a 4x4. A 4x4 vertical down pressure on it can take 5,400 pounds. So I've got 10,000 pounds that it could hold back with those two 4x4s right there. So there's my Jeep. I'm getting ready. I've already got my steel cable hooked to it, and I'm getting ready to start pulling my main support beam up in there. And there it is. That's a 3/8". Well, I take it back. That's a 8" I-beam that I'm pulling up, and that was about a 425-pound beam that I pulled up in place to get it. So basically, I just put my put a pulley there and a pulley there and hook my cable from my Jeep up into pulleys to pull that beam up. And I'll tell you right now, it fell on me several times until I got it perfectly centered on that beam, that it wouldn't do this or this as it was going up. So there it is. That's when it was about halfway up. And believe me, I'm pulling that Jeep up really, really slow as I'm going. And there's 3/4. And at this point, you can see I'm putting straps, those 700-pound straps, on both ends of it to hold it up. Because at this point, I can't go any higher with the pulleys. It won't pull it up. So what I'm having to do now is I've got two 700-pound straps on each end, and I've got to take that chain off in the center and remove that, and then use those straps to slowly pull it up until it's flush with the ceiling. At which point, there you go, it's flush now. And once I got that up there, and yes, my wife got really angry with me, the fact that I did this by myself.
You did this by yourself?
Yes.
Jesus.
She wasn't the happiest with me that I was doing this stuff.
Where you find six really good friends and a six-pack or a case of beer.
Well, she told me I'm bullheaded, so she actually told me that again this weekend.
She was right.
Like six friends behind the camera and they're like drinking a beer.
Then who is camera?
Well, that's why you haven't seen anybody else there. I've done most of the work myself. So once I finally got it up there like that, then it was ready for the vertical beams. And there's one of the vertical beams and the other one. I put them under it, and then as you can see, I got them welded in there. And once I got that in, then it was more secure. But I thought that was it, and it wasn't. Yes. One of my engineer friends told me that when actually an engineering firm over in Paducah came by, they were curious and wanting to see it. And they said, if we can just see your house, we'll give you some advice on it too. And they told me, they said, you need just exactly what you said, lateral. So which I'm going to come back to that here later on. So then my next idea on this was, I don't want air conditioning. Typical, traditional air conditioning. So I chose earth cooling tubes instead. Earth cooling tubes, and you're probably thinking of geothermal where they run water through lines. Well, these are different. You run air through them. And so what I did was, I got the guy down the street from me to come and bring his backhoe out, and we trenched out 85 feet of trenching 10 feet down in the ground. Starting at about 3 feet down, the temperature never goes above 58 degrees here. So what I did was I went and bought culvert piping, and we ran it 40 feet down one side, 40 feet down the other, and then 5 feet across. And
using it for heating and cooling?
just cooling.
Okay.
I am, though, I will tell you this, and it's interesting you said that. I'm thinking about trying it this year, since winter is here, while we're gone, and maybe having solar panels just control the fans to blow air through it and see if it will heat the house to at least in the 40s or 50s when it's really cold.
You seem to be in a wooded lot. Did you ultimately put a wood burner in there?
No. We're actually, I went against wood after all. I was going with it, and we actually ordered this week propane.
Okay.
So there's a picture down the trench. That's 10 feet down in the ground. And there's a picture right there of the whole thing. And I know it doesn't look as much or that far, but that's 40 feet coming down and 40 feet back and 5 feet across. So there's the tubes coming into the side of the house now. And there's where I had cut out there and put the tube through the bottom of the wall. Whoops, one on that wrong slide. And that's basically my earth cooling tubes.
Do you have to worry about insulation?
Yes, I just actually did the installation here about 3 weeks ago. Yes, it definitely needs. Are you talking about for the tubes themselves, or?
Sure.
Well, here, some people said to me, they said, well, you've done wrong because you used plastic, PVC tubes. You should have used metal because metal would be more conductive. But actually, the reason I didn't go metal is because it only comes in galvanized steel. You need special equipment when you weld or cut galvanized steel. Otherwise, it's toxic.
So have you used it yet?
Yes.
And does it pull water or condensation in the corrugation?
It has, it did at first, before I started using a dehumidifier in there.
There you go. There's the key.
Yes, yes, you're exactly right. Yep. So the next thing was coal tar epoxy. All right, I know this is Corten steel, and Corten steel is designed to rust and still be good. But I also wanted extra protection. Once it was going to be put underground, I don't ever want to have to dig it out again. So I used, Microsoft flew me out to Seattle last year, I actually met a guy out there, another admin, that his dad worked in the oil industry down in Louisiana. And he said, you need to talk to my dad. He coats tankers all the time down there, and he can tell you exactly what to do. So he put me in touch with his dad, and his dad said, use coal tar epoxy. That's what we use on all the oil wells on the tanks that hold the oil in. He said, you can't beat it. And I started Googling, doing research, and it is. It's one of the best. It's not cheap. It's $110 a gallon. It's not cheap, but it's well worth it. And it is toxic, too, when you're using it. So you got to use, your normal paint mask. And you get it on you. I've still got a little bit from last week on me.
Never comes off.
No, you have to shed your skin.
And everything that you own is now covered with it.
All the outside is, yes. Yep. So that was me. I went ahead, as you can see all the little things there, I went through and sanded all of it down. And that's the epoxy that I had put the first gallon on. I took 2 gallons for each wall on it. And there it is. Of course, there's a little color difference because I had just done this one, but that's what it looks like after it was epoxy. How did you apply it? Roller. Paint roller, because it's really, really thick. I mean, when it has an activator, and then it has just tar in your 1 gallon can. You got this little activator, and you got to use a.
What's the working time on it?
1 hour.
Ooh, go fast. Go really fast.
Yes, yes. And Granger is the only place you're going to get it here in Nashville. So that was it. That was the back wall when I did it, or the side wall. That was actually, as you can see here, I had not put my cooling tubes in yet when I did that. And then came the doors and windows on it. So there's where I had just finished plasma cutting the first window out. Before this, when I'd go there, I had to leave it unlocked because the shipping container, you have to lock it from the outside. So I had no way to get in and out, so I had to leave it unlocked when I slept at night. So once I got this window started cutting out, that's it, as it was cut out in the back, which is a view of my backyard. And there's after I got the window put in.
Is that a standard Menards window?
Yep. And there's a picture from the outside of it. That's the, basically what I did was I took 2-inch square steel tubing and welded it to the, after I cut it out, welded that, and that became my window frame. And there's a view of it from the back after it got the first window. And that was nice because then I was able to open, close, and crawl through the window and be able to lock it up at night and not have to worry about someone.
And then crawl back in.
Right. So then came my second window. I cut it out, and actually there's a picture of me actually using the plasma cutter.
Insurance.
Yes. Oh, believe me, when I was doing that, it was in midsummer. It was almost 130 degrees inside there. It was, yeah.
Sparks in your leg are a lot better than that.
Yes.
Well, he had enough sweat going on. It just says
Yeah.
Hair will grow back.
So there, what I was telling you there's the frame, the square tube framing that I had put in on the second window, and I did the same way on the other one. And once I got that welded in, then I started on my door. And the door was a little different because the door, a lot of that steel had to come out, and that structurally compromised that wall of the container. So the first thing I did was just like I did the other part when I started cutting the inside walls out. I just cut a sliver down of it, so that way I could put in my, as you can see now, it has it right in that picture. I was able to put my vertical steel tube in there and be able to structurally reinforce it before I took more out. And as you can see, there's one of the tubes and there's the other one. Now I was able to go ahead and cut it out, and there you go. That was after the whole side came out. And there's after I got all the tubing put in place. And there's the door. After that got in.
Yeah, that's all. Big deal.
Yep. So basically what I did was, is once I got all my framing in, then it was just able to be pushed right into the frame at that point.
Is this before the epoxy then?
Yes, on this side. Because I did, bought 2 gallons at a time and just did each side, because you're talking $200.
A try.
Yes. So, and then plus the reason I waited on this was, I knew on this side was going to have the doors and windows, and I wasn't going to need as much epoxy. So I didn't want to buy too much and just waste it on that. So that's after it got installed, and there's the back after I epoxied it. That's what the back looks like now. So then came the telephone pole. I have to have high-speed internet over there. I'm out of everything else. I know.
I
So
love you, Greg, but I need my internet.
yes.
It's the Facebook.
Exactly.
How many links did I
It
get
wasn't
to my
fa-
pictures?
You could just blame your wife.
That's true. That's true.
She needed
She had to have
Facebook.
it.
It was the deal.
Yeah. So I needed it, and they were like, "Well, you got to have a telephone pole." Well, one of the things I found out about telephone poles, they're expensive. $2,000 a pole.
What?
Yes.
How long was your drive?
Trees are
Huh?
How long was your drive?
Get over there?
Yeah, the driveway. Yeah.
It's about probably 30 feet.
Oh, okay. So one pole.
Yeah. So, luckily enough, the construction guy down the road that came in with the backhoe that you've seen, he had extra poles laying in his garden so you can have one.
You guys number.
I know.
How much beer were you into at this point in time when this idea came up? Hey, you could just have one.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is actually, never saw myself installing a telephone pole. Ever. So this is actually, you dig it 4 feet down in the ground, he brought his backhoe down, dig it 4 feet down, and there he is, picked the pole right up.
He just brought it over with the backhoe.
Yeah. And then we just put it down, and then while he held it up with the backhoe, we just, I took rocks, and you just put rocks down inside the hole, and then just pound them down.
Not
And
quite free or anything?
nope, you don't need any of that. I know, I knew nothing about it, he had done it before, but, because his son works for CEMC, so we,
Telephone poles don't have any lateral movement. As you've seen, they're balanced, so they don't wiggle a whole lot.
yep.
Oh,
And so you don't need to put.
And he's just looking for ways to use a backhoe.
Yeah.
This has been the backhoe show.
And that was it, bam, and then I got high-speed internet connected the next weekend.
Productivity went down.
Oh, for the phone line, or you get
Well, I just got high-speed internet all because
cable, or
well, we use Apple TV, so we've got a, we can watch TV over there now, and then I need remote desktop for work sometimes, so I got a remote in, so.
I'm trying to figure out how you got high-speed internet. We can't even get here.
Well, here's the funny thing.
was it
Another thing
DSL or cable?
No, it's cable.
Cable. Okay.
Before he bought the land, he made sure it was in the window.
Well, this is what's so weird. So when you go into
It's a long
Dover,
time to think about.
yeah, you go into Dover, you have 3G. But when you come out where we're building out onto the trace, it's one of the only areas that we have 4G LTE, and we have high-speed internet and cable. So that's another thing I've really been lucky on this house.
We've gotten lucky with
to buy the right parcel.
Yes,
the right parcel in the right spot.
yes.
You can get high-speed internet with your job. You can write that off your taxes.
That's a
If
good
you
question.
if you work from home for percentage of your time,
Ooh, and I don't. It's only on emergencies and.
if you're on call, then
Oh, that's
you
true.
get a certain percentage. You can talk to the tax guy to get it particularly figured out, but there's a percentage you can claim as your taxes, but you do have to itemize everything.
Thanks for that info.
And
So
also all that Energy Star stuff you just did,
it's all tax. I know.
it's all tax deductible
Yes, and that ends December 31st.
until they extended it.
Yes.
So it was supposed to end about 8 years ago, and then they renewed it.
Yep. So next came clearing the land. We had already cleared for the house and stuff, but when he came down and we installed the telephone pole, he said, "I'm just going to go ahead and clear your land." He said, "And don't bother with it." So there he brought his other backhoe or his.
The Bobcat.
Well, I guess that's what it is. He's got one. He had one that had the steel cage and everything for being able to go back and push trees over and everything for me. So he went through and cleared, as you can see, cleared all my land off for me, and made it a lot nicer to work on. So then came the reinforcing the roof and walls we were talking about earlier. So there I am. That's me pulling up the. I used a hoist there, and that's what you were talking about on doing the lateral.
Yep.
That's what one of my engineer friends told me. He said, you need to do this. Because what happened was, if there's ever a tree that falls on this, when you walk, it bows. If a tree fell on it, it could literally crush the house right in. So that's why it needed these beams to go down the length. So I put these in and welded it in, but now I'm also extra protective and extra secure. So what I did was, after that, I put chains around. These, it has hooks. If you come back here and look, there are these hooks right here, and each one of those hooks can hold 10,000 pounds. They have a force. So basically I took chains and put around those hooks and around the beam, so if something ever happens to the weld, something falls, I don't have to worry about the beam coming down and crushing it.
That's at the joint between the two beams.
Yes, that goes all the way down the center of it. Yes. So there I am where I was pulling the second one up in place and welded it.
So while you're doing this, I see you're using the pulleys to hoist it up in the
Mhm.
center. The weak point of the roof is what you're using as your pull roof.
That's
Yes.
what I was thinking.
Yes. But
Was it buckling down a little bit while you're doing it?
It
Get
did a little
get
bit.
a little scared?
But I'll show you what I did. There's how I got the buckle out.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Just use the roof jacks to lift it
Yes,
forward.
those house jacks I put
House
under
jacks.
it. And I put two of those, and then that pushed it right back up. But yes, you're right, it did bow it down some.
Make a groaning noise, scare shit out of you.
Yep. So once I got that in, then I welded that. As you can see, here's the big beam, the first one that I had welded in place. That is so strong that it just holds this beam in. And then those two vertical ones, the first cuts I did in there, that's what those two are welded to.
Is it sitting like in the lip of the first beam?
Yes, yes.
The
it
beams
is.
that you put up are rated for like 70 or 80 foot spans. Just thought you should know that.
Oh, yeah. They told me, they said you went way overboard. But I'd rather go overboard than not enough.
Well, now you can have a second story.
That's true.
If you wanted to, you have enough support.
Well, actually, this part right here, these corners, of it, they can take 150,000 pounds of downforce.
They stacked them with 20 high on the ship.
Yep. So they're strong. It's just the walls that are not. And there I am putting the main one on, or the last one in the front. And then there's a better picture right there. That's what I did. I put the chain around those, so that way I know that they're permanently secured there and nothing, if a weld breaks, if there's an earthquake or something, it ain't gonna fall down and kill me. So, but yeah, that's my Jeep. So there, this is my next thing, so I had to buy these. Those are I-beams.
It's about 1,800 pounds of steel.
It is. Well, actually, that's 1,100 pounds right there, steel
On a
on
Jeep.
top.
Well, with the rack.
Yeah, I custom built that rack for the Jeep back in 2011, that it could hold some weight.
She was squatting.
Yeah, but yeah, I had to bring all those over, and so this is the part where when I decided I wanted to bury it, those walls would have crushed right in on me, because you're talking 2,300 pounds per square foot of force that the ground pushes up as it's buried.
So what was the plan? Was half buried? Was the plan for that?
Two sides are buried.
Two sides were buried. Okay.
So there you go. So what I had to do is put these steel beams here up against that wall. The wall is 14 gauge steel. So here's a better one. So what I did was I came through with my plasma cutter and cut this out where it fit right around it, and then I just welded that in place. And then actually I didn't get a picture, but I also welded another steel plate down here where there was just more weld coverage space on this. And there you go. I put them every 4 feet down the wall. I welded those in. And yes, they were well worth having. I used 4-inch I-beams. I know that was an overkill. Even one of the engineers told me, he said, dude, he was like, you went way overboard using these, but I'm like, I'd rather be overboard than under. So those definitely did good. So then the next thing before we could put it underground was drainage.
Keep the water up.
Yep. So what I did was I took 2 pipes. This pipe right here is gonna be my sewage pipe, where my drains and all that stuff come through and be able to run the sewage around the house. And then as you can see, this pipe has holes in it. So any water that may accumulate down in, when we bury it, it'll just run right out through this drainage pipe. And you can see, like right in this part right here, you can see that little film. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a film that I put around it, and that stops like dirt from going down in and clogging the pipe up, stuff like that.
Did you say you were going to a septic field for this, or?
No, we don't need septic. Well, because there's not going to be any what's called black water. Black water is,
You don't poop either?
well, we've got a composting
Oh,
tool.
that's right, okay. Well, it's all gray water.
Gray water, and because it's gray water, you can let it flow right out onto your property.
Just throw it out back here.
Yep. So there's a better view. You can see that film that I put over that. So they're running around the corner. And that was all that was required for that. Now, then came the putting the container under the ground. And this is where I was scared. So he came back with the backhoe and started pushing the dirt in that they had excavated for me in the beginning. And I'm going to tell you right now, I was scared. Even though I knew all my welds were good on those beams I put down the wall,
Moment of truth.
it was scary. So he started pushing it in, and of course he had to bring some more, his dump truck down, bring some more stuff. And there's after he pushed more up against it, and there's from the front. And yeah, here's another video that I took while he was burying it under. And I'm gonna tell you, I was scared. I was like, it's all I need for the wall just to crush. If it's gonna work.
So you could have put that underwater at the Marianas Trench, and it would not have collapsed. 4-inch
Yeah.
beams, really?
I don't think it's gonna come up here. Anyway, you get the idea when he started pushing the dirt up to it. So,
Maybe that's.
no, just the sides.
I'd be interested to know next summer. You put the cooling tubes in, but you've also covered 2 walls.
Yes.
And so the question that I'm very curious about is just covering the 2 walls enough? Or are the cooling tube absolutely necessary?
Well, we're gonna know that.
We're going to find that out.
Exactly, when it gets hot again next year. So here was the next problem I had. So when he put it underground, it worked fine. All those beams right there held like a champ. I tell you though, when it started in, these did start to bow in some. I mean, every 4 feet's enough. But what happened was they bowed in some, and there was some space between the beam and of course in the wall, and it pushed that wall right into the beam, and then the beam held it. Fine. But the next problem came that I didn't even think about. This. It started bowing the roof.
Oh, buckling it because that top corner?
Yes, because it was pushing so much force. It was pushing so much force here, it started to push the whole top up. And you can see right here a little bit of a bow right in that area right there. So I luckily I had some 4x4s, and I ran and cut this 4x4 right there and put it right in place. I knew a 4x4 could hold it back. So it stopped it, and then I put another one there when I did that, and another one there, and then there was another one up in here. And I ran to Lowe's in Clarksville real fast and picked up a whole bunch of 4x4s and came back. And then that's when I decided, and actually it turned out to be even better that this actually happened to me, that it started to bow the roof. Because what happened was, so then I used right here on this steel beam, I-beam, so I put the 4x4 between that and this wall here. Why was this such a good thing? It gave me, in the end, something to attach my...
Some screw tube.
Yes. It reinforced the ceiling, and I was able to use my jacks to push it back out. It not only reinforced my ceiling, but then I had attachment points for the inside framing of the house. So I was actually happy this happened.
Is your plan to insulate drywall? Or?
Yes. So then came the roofing on it. So as you can see, I started doing the coal tar epoxy up there, and I started using styrofoam pads. Now, I'm not done with the roof yet, but what I did was I installed those styrofoam pads, and there it is from the front, and that's all the way down. Now, what I'm planning on doing in the very end of this is we're gonna actually put grass up there, artificial grass.
Oh,
But the styrofoam, and this is another thing I gotcha that I learned. I should have done this in the very beginning because I wouldn't have been burning up so bad.
no, white styrofoam, is it pink or white?
It's a bluish.
The bluish, yeah, it would reflect a lot of sunlight.
Yes, I should have
And
done
it
that in
has
the
a
beginning.
marginal R factor.
I wouldn't have been in there when I was plasma cutting this. I wouldn't have been in a 130-degree container doing that.
125, but so.
Yeah, yeah.
So what's the purpose of the grass?
Oh, that just grew up.
No, I mean on top of the roof.
That just went natural looking.
Okay.
Well,
Just
it
more
has a
natural.
couple benefits. One, it will last forever because it's self-renewing. Awesome, right? It has a cooling effect.
Yes.
A very much of a cooling effect. You have to have turf about that thick for it to work. And so that has a natural cooling effect, right? And so in terms of cooling and longevity, that's the way to go.
Yep.
And it looks pretty cool too.
And the government
So
puts it
kind of
house
circling it, make it a hobbit arrow.
Well, yeah, true.
You guys
Certain habits.
So then came, after we got all this stuff done, the framing of the inside of the house.
was a shipping container.
So then I started framing it, and that's when my wife actually started coming in and helping me at this point. All before I had done all that by myself. But then she came in and started helping me, and we started framing the inside out. And we raised it up. We didn't build directly down because here was one of the problems. This part right here where I showed you back earlier of having to seal that off, weld the two together, that plate, now it's up a little bit. Which actually, that worked out to be good too for us. So we put 2x4s all the way down and put them on their side to raise the floor up a little bit.
What's the height?
They're 10 feet high.
You should be able to get an 8-foot ceiling
Yes,
with room for insulation.
yes.
Pro tip, always buy twice as many 2x4s as you think you should.
Believe me, I did. Believe me. Oh yeah, there's a lot of
Because you
disposing.
use them for a lot, you know?
Yep.
Like them handy.
So there we go, we did that, and then there's a special Advantech plywood that you want to buy. It's the best plywood you can get.
That's always good.
That one, well, that one is, yeah, that's OSB. But we use Advantech for all the water vulnerable areas like the kitchen, bathroom, and then the floor. Because you never know if you have a bad spill or something like that.
Oh, you're doing a floor, you're not a wall.
Right, we just did the floor, that, well, as you can see, we're talking about get a 2x4s. Yeah, but anyway, that's so we had finished it there, that's the flooring, the subflooring that is. And then we started the walls, framing the walls out. And there, you can see right there in that part, that's where we had all our 4x4s at the ceiling. And that gave us that connectivity there to frame out the inside.
Missing
Now,
your second top coat.
do what?
You're missing your second top coat.
Well, yeah. But now, one of the things that a lot of builders do is they get this confused is this framing inside is not structural framing at all. You've already got your structure there, so you can frame it in there. And there's some gotchas I've learned about framing. It's not as easy as you think to do it. We had uneven walls at first. Yeah. So we started doing that. That was right there, the pipe in there, the sewage pipe. That went out to those two pipes that I showed pictures of earlier. And there we go, there's more of it. We're framing, starting to frame the bathroom out there. So we got that part.
Did you use framing brackets on the bottom?
Yes, that was what was a lifesaver. They're not cheap. They're about $1 a piece. So they're $2 a board. Those framing brackets are, but I'm going to tell you they make framing so much better. So we got those in, and then that wasn't the best pick I got. But anyway, that was the main wall on the back, or what you would call the front of the house, which is, the front of the house looks out back of it because we wanted more privacy on it. And then comes the insulation. This stuff is the best stuff you can get. I'll tell you this, if you're building a shipping container house, good luck finding somebody that will insulate it. They'll spray foam it for you. I called every spray foaming place in the area, Nashville, Clarksville, they all turned me down when I told them it was a shipping container. I don't know why. All I'm asking for you to do is spray foam it, but none of them would. So I found out, I went on Amazon, looked up Dow Chemical Froth Pack. This stuff's awesome. It's not cheap. I mean, it's $750 for 2 of those for a can. They cover 650 square feet. But from what I found out, it would have been almost $2,200 to get somebody to come in and do it. And I had to buy actually 2 of these
Did
things.
you rent the gun or did you
No,
buy the gun?
the gun comes in this
Oh,
box.
comes with it.
And you got your A and your B tanks. These are 2 tanks. They're the same thing you use your gas for your grill, your propane tanks. That's what they come in. And you put 2 lines together, and then both lines come into the gun, and then you come with a bunch of different heads for the gun. Because when you start the spray foam, you better already have everything ready, because it will seize on you in the gun. That's why you get so many heads on that gun to swap out. So if you need to stop,
So cleaning wasn't a problem.
no,
You just swap out the head.
yeah, yeah, because the 2 chemicals come together right in the head of that.
So, I know much about spray foam. Is it sticking to the wall?
Yes.
Or do you have like?
And as soon as it lands, it starts blowing up like
Yep.
marshmallow.
And
It's
it's,
the yellow stuff that you put.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah.
yeah, same stuff. But now there's 2 types. There's open cell and closed cell. And you want closed cell because the difference is open cell is not guaranteed on water. So if you have a leak, it can come right through open cell. But if there's a leak happened inside there on me, with closed cell, it's sealed it right up. It can't come through it. So you definitely want to use closed cell foam. And closed cell, if you've got mold in there, which was another problem I ran into with this. If you have mold in there, closed cell will seal it off. And then it just dies because it doesn't have access. So there it is after I applied it. That's on the ceiling, one of the coats of it.
You got to screed it off before it dries, right?
Yes.
You gotta do what?
Screed. You have to take a board and shave it, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it is hard and it's impossible to move it.
Right. So that was after it was done. And then on my 2 walls that are left exposed, I'm doing a hybrid insulation. That's what it's called. So this is your regular cellulose insulation. And there's a view of it from last weekend. We were insulating the walls in there with that. We already had the spray foam on the wall, and then we came back with this in front of it. Well, what happened was I made a mistake, and we had already done this wall, and we had to take the plywood off the wall, and I thought it was going to go all over it. It just stayed in place. So that gives me a lot of insulation on the 2 walls that are exposed to the outside to really be able to hold the heat and the cool inside on me. Because the other 2 sides are underground, so you don't have to worry about those being underground. I mean, they're facing, temperatures in the 50s. So I don't have to worry about those. So the only thing I applied on those was spray foam with no other insulation in front of them. So then comes the electricity. The house is not going to be connected to the grid whatsoever. It's all completely solar powered. So the first thing I had to do is create my own cables, and that's not easy. You have to literally use a sledgehammer to make your own battery cables. That's that special tool I got. And you have to hit it literally with all your might to crimp those cables. Because you're talking about 4 gauge wire, 4 and 2 gauge wire here. There's my rack right there. I started out with 4 batteries. Those are all deep cycle, 105 amp hour batteries on it. And that's a first picture of one of my solar panels. There's actually, it's not as good of a picture. I thought it was better than that, but that's my first solar panel. That's a 100 watt panel right there, and I've got 4. And actually, the 5th one just came in today. When I head over there tonight, I'm gonna pick it up from the house on the way. So we're gonna have 500 watts coming in there of solar power to basically what it'll do is it'll charge these batteries. Everything runs straight off the batteries in the house. Now that's one of the things I did in the house. The house is not going to be AC powered at all, except for 2 outlets in the house. Everything's direct current because what most people don't understand is almost everything. Well, I'll take it back. a great deal of the things you use in your house are direct current. They just have that little fat box that you plug into your outlet that inverts it from AC to DC. So I told my wife, I'm like, why do we, here's part of the problem is, if you invert it from DC to AC, you're wasting between 6 and 10% of the power right off, inverting it. That's why they have those big, well, I'm trying to remember what those were called in electricity. They dissipate the heat, because that's how it gets rid of
Heat
that.
sinks.
Heat sink, that's it. That's why they have those heat sinks on, because they're dissipating that, converting that power from DC to AC. So that's why you're losing that energy. And I told my wife, why don't we just go straight direct current on all the house? You can get DC light bulbs. We've got our fan to blow the air through the air cooling ducts. Used a car fan that cools your radiator. We were able to use that. All the lights are, my iPhone, iPad, MacBook Air, all that stuff's direct current. Smoke detectors. So it's not hard.
So, I mean, you have to get special adapters that don't do the conversion?
No, actually, I think I have. Well, that's my main.
Your power charge controller should have USB outlets and everything runs out there.
Well, this is the charge controller right here from the panels. So the panels come in, and of course at this time when I took the picture, it wasn't connected, but the panels come in into those two terminals, and then these two go to the batteries, and then these two go up here to the fuse box, which I was going to put breakers on, and I found out with direct current, which is why you've never gotten breakers in a car, is that breakers don't act fast enough for direct current. That's why everything is still fused. So I'm doing the same thing, so I used a marine fuse panel for it, and that's what I run all my electricity off of. Which that's a breaker right there. I'm just getting ready to take down because I found that out too late. Breakers just don't cut it when it comes to direct current. So most of my outlets in the house are going to be this. That's your two USBs, and then you have a cigarette lighter in there. And so what you were asking is, like, I guess I didn't take a picture. So my modem, for instance, my cable modem in there, it's direct current. So what I did was, it had the normal AC line on it, and then it had the little fat box, and then it had this thin line going into the modem. I just cut the wire from on the thin line side, and then split it up, put a resistor on it, and dropped it down to 8 watts, and then put a cigarette lighter on it, and then I can unplug it right into that, and then it works perfect. I did that both with my cable modem and the router. I've done it with our dehumidifier in there. That was the other way I got around the mold. Our dehumidifier had that little box converting to DC. I just cut it right off and hooked up a cigarette lighter to it. So many things in your house can do that. We just did that with our new carbon monoxide detector. It was plug in the AC outlet, and I cut it off and converted it. So people just don't realize that so much stuff in your house that you use that's DC. Our hair dryer for the bathroom now that I bought, it runs straight off direct current. So there's lots.
I guess you did something as an example like a mobile phone? Is that
Yes.
Because why would they have a direct current?
Well, it's 12voltmonster.com is the site I go on. And you're right, a lot of the stuff I do get is for RVs. Yep. So the next thing is the water. I'm actually haven't done a lot with that yet. This weekend is going to be the weekend we're going to get water in there. So the first thing I did right when I started building it was I bought 2 water totes. They're 275 gallon totes. These are, when you buy them, you want FDA approved totes. Otherwise, you're getting something that you don't want to put drinking water down into. Yeah, exactly, food grade ones. So I got 2 of those, and actually we're going to go in the end probably with 8 all told.
It's a lot of water.
Yep.
Is it easier when you run out to go and get them refilled with your truck, or have somebody come to you?
Well, here's another thing I found out just a few weeks ago.
Put 2 more of those in the truck.
Yeah. Well, these things, just to give you an idea of how much they weigh full, water is 8.8 pounds per gallon. So that'll give you an idea, 275 gallons, how much that's going to be weighing.
Where are you keeping?
Well, right now, these are, I just put them outside when we started framing the inside out. But they're going to be actually out front of the house. And we're going to build a little shed around them.
A water closet?
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yep. And it's going to have a little rain collection tower on top of it that'll collect the rain and drop it right down in there. And then we're going to have carbon filters that will filter it coming in the house from there. And I just figured out actually yesterday how, because my biggest worry has been the wintertime, it freezing over. Now granted, that's a lot of water, volume to dissipate the heat out of to freeze, but still it can happen. So what I thought is I'm going to use Fresnel lens in there and put steel plates around them and let the lens get really hot and keep the inside heated using those in the sun. Because here's part of the thing. Now, like in the summertime, it is really, as you've seen in a couple of pictures, it's really wooded out back. And this was another thing I was lucky about in the house. The house faces south. So that's the direction when you put solar panels up, you want them facing south. So that's another thing I was really lucky about. So what in the wintertime, all the leaves have fallen, so you get direct sunlight all day long on it. And that's enough that I think that will be enough to keep a Fresnel lens shining down on that steel plate to get it really hot during the day. Because if you get one that's about this high, I mean, you're talking, so those things can get as hot as 3,000 degrees. Those lenses can, when they're really focused. So I'm going to try that first. If that doesn't work, my first plan was to buy what's called infra panels. And they're solar panels that basically give off heat. And it'll be facing south, so in the summertime, it's not going to get any sun at all on there. And then plus I can cover the panels up in the summer. But in the wintertime, it'll get sun all day long and be able to heat the inside of the shed up and keep that water from freezing. So that's my plan for the water. So yeah, and these you can typically get for usually $75 to $150. The food grade ones. They are a little more expensive than the ones that have chemical. They use herbicides and all those. And so there's my latest picture, actually. To be honest with you, this is the last picture I've taken. I've gotten a lot of work done inside, but honestly, I've been working on it now for almost 16 months, and I'm just tired, and I want to get it done. And by the time I'm done every weekend now, I just don't even take pictures. I clean up, and I'm gone. But that was the last picture. As you can see now, I've got all my walls up. I've got my doors installed, and actually you asked on the power, that's the generator I've used through the whole, I've actually put 162 hours on that generator all told, working. And you can see right here, that's one of my cooling tubes that comes out. That's actually the one that'll be blowing into the house. And last weekend we got the brick wall put in here, fireplace wall. That's where our propane heater is going to be. And we're getting this weekend, we're going to get the first of two 325-gallon propane tanks delivered, because I want a total of 650 gallons of that on site.
So I'm just curious, outside the hours, have you kept track of the costs?
Yes. Right now, I've got $21,780 into it.
Including
Yeah.
the
That's a lot
property?
of your time. But
Yeah, if that includes that doesn't include the property.
Yes. Well, not the property. I mean, the property originally we paid $5,500 for the property. And yes, over there at LDL right now on the Tennessee side, property is cheap right now because it's so underdeveloped there. If you go up to the Kentucky side, it's almost tenfold on LDL. So yeah, that's how much we have in it right now, minus the property cost.
And tools? Can you put those in your cost?
Some of them I have, like this generator. We had actually bought this generator that last major snow that we had here, and just because we were afraid we were going to be without power, it was so bad. And
Maybe the plasma cutter?
yeah, the plasma cutter I paid about $500 for, and I already had the compressor to go with that. Those, if you buy a plasma cutter with the compressor, you're talking $1,000 for a plasma cutter. The welder I already had on hand. Most of the tools, I really had quite a bit of those already from other projects I've done before this house. Of course, you can see that's my bed right now. I just got a blow-up bed over there.
It's off the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
So
But
if we wanted to follow this project, you have it like a web page or a...
it's on my LinkedIn profile.
LinkedIn. Wouldn't be money.
Well, actually, I started out and I didn't think about it, but when I started doing it on LinkedIn, I figured I'm just going to do a small blog. I didn't realize it would end up being 215 pages long. So yeah, it's I've had a lot that I've blogged out there on this. The gotchas, I think I told you a lot of the gotchas. A lot of the gotchas that got me on this were stuff like the mold that one of my friends had warned me, and then all of a sudden, bam, it condensed. Because what the problem is when you're using a steel container, it will you'll have warmer inside, colder on the outside, and then it condenses that into water droplets inside, and it started molding all over on the container on the inside. So of course, I bleached it all down, killed all of it, and then when I put the spray foam in there, that stopped it altogether. Mold. So that's one of the gotchas right there that I learned. One of the other gotchas is make sure you wear, when you're doing spray foam, make sure you wear a hair or something over your head. And it is an absolute mess when you're doing the ceiling. When I did my ceilings, I didn't think about it. I had it in my hair. I had it all over everything inside there. I mean, that whole shelf was just flooded with little specks of that spray foam all over it.
And there's no cleaning that stuff up.
Well, you shovel.
Sure.
I had to use my scooping shovel.
Cold show.
Yep, cold. That's what I was trying to think. Use my cold shovel, and I just went through there, and you can see some marks still there where it was. And you just gotta start shoveling it off. Stuff. Luckily, it was before we did the walls in there and got that in. But now my next thing on this is that all these plywood walls, those are going to be covered with wood planks, and so is the floor. We're doing, and actually, it's not going to be true wood. One thing I learned when I was researching this is we're putting in composite flooring in there, the composite wood that actually laminate is what we're actually using. You can actually use that on walls. Instead of using actual real wood, you can use laminate wood-looking wall flooring for the walls too. Armstrong, which is what we're using, has a full web page on how to do it. So that way, we never have to worry about it. If it gets too cold, is the wood gonna bow? If it gets too hot, if it gets too humid, laminate is gonna last pretty much forever in there for us. So we're doing both the walls and that, and then the ceiling, we're gonna use drop ceiling after that. And actually, one of the things that, and I've never liked this kind of drop ceiling at all, but the stuff I've seen at Lowe's, I was like, wow. One of the upscale Indian restaurants in downtown Nashville there's the first place I actually saw it. They had drop ceiling, and they had 10 inserts in there, and I mean, it was awesome looking. And then I started researching, and they have really designer style drop ceilings you can do that just don't look kind of cheesy like this anymore. So we're going with that. Going to do the wood wall look, wood floor look, and the commode. So we're going with the commode we're going to have is not going to be connected to anything. It's going to be what's called a composting commode. So basically what happens is when you go to the bathroom, it goes down into a reservoir, and it has peat moss in that reservoir, special type peat moss, and it literally converts all the waste into a peat moss form, and you just dump it outside.
Take it to your roof.
Yep, exactly.
So is there water involved in the system?
Yes, it has, and because it's a composting commode, it's direct current. You can either plug it into an AC outlet that'll convert it, or you can plug it directly into a DC battery, which is what I'll do. And you have to have your stack, to go out up through the roof so that it can vent all this out. the smell of it. So,
And does it make the property smell bad?
no,
No, okay.
nope. So
Have you tried after Indian food?
well, not yet. Luckily, they don't have Indian over there at LBL, so. But that's what we're going, and that's our main thing with the sewage, the black water thing, is that if we can, since we're gonna have a composting commode, we don't have to worry about black water. So you can just we can let the shower water and the sink water run right out into the backyard, and they can't say anything to you for that. So, go ahead.
Did you price out like septic and that whole route and
Yes.
decide against it partly on price or?
Yes.
Okay.
And the cost to hook up the water, hook up the electricity. I'd actually thought about, why don't we hook up and see if we can sell the power back? And we were looking at $8,000 to hook up to the local utilities. And I'm like, for a weekend house that we just want to go to, it's already off the grid, no thanks. And yeah. So one of the gotchas on this was that I learned, all right, the sewage part didn't work the way I wanted it. So I ended up cutting those off, and right in here, this is the bathroom right here, I ended up cutting a hole in the wall here, and I ran my sewage pipes right out the back. So I have 3 sewage pipes that run straight out, and they drain right out into the back of the yard, and they're gonna be right underneath the deck. So nobody would ever see them, it's just great water. Yeah, so it's not like it's dirty or gonna be smelly or anything. So that's how we ended up doing that. And I ended up just closing up the pipe that I put around. The drain pipe that was underground still is functional, but as far as the sewage pipe, we abandoned it. And here's one of the reasons why. Because we changed this bathroom here, was originally gonna be on the wall in the back. And then we were like, well, we want a big bedroom. So we moved the bathroom out of there, and that pipe, we would have had to have run down, cut off some of the wall in the bedroom, and it was just gonna be a huge hassle. And that's another thing, like I was saying earlier, it's gonna change. No matter how you have this thing designed out, you're gonna have changes. Good luck on that.
Is the pipe under the floor or?
Yes. When you remember when I showed you the picture where I had the 2x4s on their sides and all that? Well, that gave me that advantage to be able to put it right underneath that and right through there. So it's under that floor now. So I got the shower installed last weekend, and I've got the sink in the bathroom installed now. Sewage is this weekend. So I've got right now on order the hot water. There's a gas-powered hot water heater now that we can get works straight off of propane. So we got that on order. Pumps, the water pump for water pressure in there. They're really cool. They only work when the pressure gets down. So what it does is it will build up pressure in the lines in the house, and then when you turn the faucet on, it'll sense automatically that pressure drops, so I'm going to turn on. So it doesn't stay running all the time.
Big non-mobile RV.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'm putting all those in this weekend.
Why not put in a well?
I thought about a well. Actually, a guy down the street has a well from me. It's just that, honestly, I didn't work out. I'm getting kind of tired of the project now, and I want to get livable, and I just want to.
Shelling an extra $4,000 is usually a good.
That
That's a
too.
deterrent.
Yeah, yeah. And you got to get you got to get the drilling in and all that. Yeah, and you got to get permits for it. Yeah, it's the same thing having a perk. If I'd had the land perk, I would have had to gotten permits for that. So that's the main reason I didn't do any of that. And then I've gotten people ask me, well, what do you think about ever being able to sell it? I don't see any problem with ever having, I would have with selling it. And the reason I say that is because even though I don't classify it as a doomsday prepper house, there are plenty of homes over in that area that people have built that are doomsday prepper houses, and they had no problem selling them when they got rid of them. So I don't really, and then plus there's a lot of hunters that come over there. They just want a weekend getaway place. They can come over and stay when they go hunting. So I don't really see a problem of ever being able to sell this.
You turn it into an Airbnb or?
Actually, I've had several people tell me that recently. I know. I've thought about doing that too. Yep. So that's my next thing. So this week, as of this weekend afterwards, I'm gonna have running water in there. We'll have, our other solar panels, so we'll have 500 watts. In the end, we're gonna have a total of 15 solar panels, in there. And I wish I could get them this year, but, oh well. But yeah, they are tax credits. And I didn't know there's so much stuff I've done on this. I'm gonna have a lot of tax credits this year. The spray foam is, the insulation's tax credits, the windows, the door, solar panels are all credits I'll get. So I'm excited on that. So that's pretty much the gist of the whole project.
Thanks for sharing, appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, if you wanna actually look at my blog and everything, all you gotta do is go to my profile, Mick Pletcher, on LinkedIn, and I've got it under post. And I'll tell you, it takes a while to load.
Give the obligatory. Thanks,